Hello, everyone. Welcome to another session of Office Hours for App Development in Dynatrace. Today, in this session, we have Harris and me. Harris, do you want to say something?
Hello, Danny, and hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's session. We're Danny and Harris, Dynatrace application developer advocates. Happy to be here with you, Danny.
I'm also happy to be here. And what can we expect from this session? So, yeah, it's been a month since the last session we had. And you might wonder, there might not be many things coming up new on app development only, but we do have some good news to share for you guys. And how will this session be divided? It will be more or less like the same. First, we are going to introduce the new releases and features that popped up in app development. And later on, we'll answer your questions. So feel free to ask in the chat any question that you have. And also, we'll be sharing some questions we've gathered in the community that we think they might be interesting for you to know. So, the first news is that now you can send intents to Davis AI. So, we have the Davis AI chat, and you can contact it from any app, also from your custom app. And there's this intent that is called Ask Question that allows you to ask a question to Davis AI from anywhere. So it only requires a prompt that can be whatever you like to ask Davis AI to. And it also optionally allows the context for better responses on the AI. And also there's a property that is the execute. That means if you want to execute it instantly or let the user execute it manually. So how this actually works? You can, in this example, you can see, for example, that we are building a problems application and you want to ask the AI whether the problem broken test application, uh, what's about it, tell me more. So you add the prompt, you set execute to true so it executes instantly, and you can add some context for adding supplementary information like these are the affected entities. You can also ask supplementary content as instructions. So for example, I want the answer in bullet points. Also, I want you to find information only in Dynatrace. So there's the type document retrieval as well for the context. And also you can add your application as the origin app for more context as well. This is how it will look, the response on Davis AI. So tell me more about the Davis problem titled broken test application. And this is what we got from the payload that we sent before in the intent to Davis AI. We got everything in bullet points, and it showed us what we wanted from the prompt we wrote. So, yeah, some good news around AI that in these days are always welcome. So, any new integration with AI from custom app development is good to have. And yeah, remember, you can use it anywhere. Another new, which is that we finally have released the Dynatrace App Toolkit first stable version, DT App 1.0. And yeah, it's available for you already to download. You can access it to create your new app, also to modify your custom existing apps. For that, this guide, we have updated the guide in the developer portal. So now it's much more accessible for you. And we also have the migration guide in case you have an existing app using DT app version 0 dot something. You have on the developer portal how to migrate from version 0 to version 1, which shouldn't be much complicated. The main thing is about the app structure. Now you have the everything related to the UI within the UI folder instead of the source folder. And yeah, we have some other stuff, but this is one of the main stuff, and you can check the migration guide in case you want to update something. So as always, if you want more information, you can check out the developer newsletter and the community forum. Every month we release a new developer newsletter. In a week or so, there will be the version 28 coming up. So stay tuned in there. You can follow the page as well to get the latest news on that. And with that, that's all of it on the news. And we are going. You want to say something, Harris?
No, no. I'm just gonna share the link for the newsletter, so we get that shared. But yes, as you said, Danny, you can find what we just talked about in the newsletter as well, so you can get it quickly. Um, the information there as well.
Great. So let's go with the Q&A session. So feel free to add any question in the chat. And we've gathered some questions from the community. The first one is about monitored entities client. So I don't know how to pronounce his name, Jordi.
Yeah,
But
it's Jord. I actually know Jord because he used to be he's one of our partners of Dynatrace, and I used to handle the accounts that he was partnered with for Dynatrace. So his name is Jord.
great. Okay. So Short is asking whether monitor entities client is segment aware. And so far, I would say that the question is a valid question, but segment monitor entities client comes from the classic environment B2 SDK. And since classic environment B2 is not from the new platform, it's from the old one, this is currently not supported. So you cannot filter by segments on the classic environment B2. You can filter by management zones instead. And you cannot filter in segments because segments is a new platform concept. So if you want to know more about segments, this is out of the scope of the app development, but you have a guide also in the documentation of Dynatrace on some examples on how to upgrade from management zones to segments, how to do the migration. So in the new platform, you can use segments instead. But even knowing this, we still have the same problem, no? So Sjord
I
still
would
cannot. Yeah,
I would just add that so since we launched the second gen or the new platform, we have went over the use cases for the APIs from the classic environment, and we have the new platform APIs. And over time, they're gonna get migrated, right? So the classic environment V2, it had a V1, and it's gonna have a version 3, which is when it gets migrated. Now, it doesn't mean that all of the entities will get, um, but it's highly likely that it will come in some form or another. But basically, all of the APIs and the SDK, it will get updated so that they're fully usable with all of the new platform concepts. So while it might not exist right now, it's highly likely that it's coming in the future.
yeah. Thank you, Harris. So yeah, so segments is a new platform concept, and you need to be aware of it. So in this case, for this user, we have an alternative. So instead of using the, as we see in the monitor entities client, you can use instead the Smartscape nodes DQL command. So this is a pretty new command that allows you to fetch all the entities at once. And so far, it just supports AWS and Kubernetes, but we are planning to support more entities, and stay tuned for that. With this command, you don't need to access the classic environment v2 SDK at all. You just need to, with the query execution client, execute some DQL, which is as simple as you can see in the screenshots. Thank you, Sinisa, which is from our team. Thank you for providing the answer here. Really helpful. And once this Smartscape nodes command is available for all entities, you will be able to replace fully the and do what you want to do. This is it for this question. And we have another one that is interesting. There's Zoltan that is asking how to debug app functions on VS Code. And yeah, this is a question that some people don't know. I don't know if it's because they created the app long time ago when this was not possible, but right now it is possible. So in fact, the answer, yeah, it's that it's possible, and you can do it on VS Code. You can go to the Run and Debug tab, and you will see an option to launch app for app function debugging or something similar to this. It will say something about app functions. And yeah, this is something that goes out of the box if you created the app with the app toolkit client. And the app toolkit is the one that creates .vscode/launch.json file that includes this configuration. And the configuration looks something like this in the latest app toolkit version 1.0. If you have an older version, maybe this configuration is a bit different, but if it's working for you, just keep it. It's fine. In this case, yeah, if you see that it's not working, just check out that this is the configuration that you have. If not, just copy it on your project and try it out again, because there could be that there are very old versions of app toolkit that were not supporting this, but right now it is supported. And for VS Code, you can debug your app functions, adding breakpoints, and so on. So unfortunately, for other IDEs like IntelliJ, Cursor, we don't have out of the box the configuration for you, but definitely you can create it yourself. And now that I spoken about app functions, I want you to remind you also that there are some limitations on them. They time out after 120 seconds. You can call app functions of other apps. You can call function executor API, or also they have 256 megabytes of RAM only. And the inputs and outputs cannot be larger than 5 megabytes, and so on. You can read those in the developer portal. So stay that in mind. An app function is not a fully functional backend. It's something that can help you out in some scenarios. And which are the scenarios? So I don't recommend to use an app function for everything. I would recommend it to only use for those use cases. So for example, for accessing third-party APIs over the internet, so you avoid the coarse configuration and you save on security. Also, if you request needs credentials for authentication that you don't want to expose in the UI code, you can do that in the app function, also related to security. And for heavy data processing that you don't want to take into the browser because maybe it can block the main UI. So instead of moving it into a web worker or something similar, you can move it on an app function. And last but not least, you could do some data wrangling on your app function to have less tweaks to do on the UI code. So as I said, don't use it for everything. For example, for just executing some DQL, you don't need to an app function. You have the use DQL hook. So just execute the DQL on the component itself, which will be much simpler and easier to debug. So our last question, setting timeframes in DQL is the question. So Legil, in this case, asks how can he use controls offered by the user interface to select his query timeframe in DQL. So he has a query similar to fetch logs from now minus 5 days, and he wants to set the timeframe from the user interface instead of writing it on the DQL on the app. And for that, you have components like the timeframe selector that they have the onChange callback that gives you whatever the user has selected in the UI, and you can set that then in your useDQL hook. In this case, the useDQL hook can accept the query itself, but it's simpler if you don't need to tweak the DQL string and you use the default timeframe start and default timeframe end attributes from useDQL, because then you don't need to play around with strings and you have the parameters separated for on one side the time frame and on the other side you have the strings. So here's a grasp of the documentation that explains that the time frame start and end can be used if there's no time frame on the query string itself. Otherwise, if there's a time frame in the query string, it would override the default time frame. But I would recommend to solve that case using the default time frame start and time frame end. So let's see how this will look. This is what the user had. So he had the time frame within the query string, and instead, what we recommend is to use the default time frame start and default time frame end, which are set to the time frame that we get from our time frame selector. So our time frame selector component on change, if the time frame is defined, you set the time frame to the new value, which is in absolute dates already from the time frame selector. So this way you have everything connected, the UI to your state and to the execution in DQL. So bear that in mind that on Strato we have plenty of components on everything, charts, tables, buttons, layouts. So everything, and we are constantly developing new features. So in this case, just check it out. Maybe something you thought it was not possible, it is now possible. And we also have the page about the upcoming changes. So in this case, we are already in version 2.3.1 of component previews, but we already have some breaking changes in the pipeline. So check out the upcoming changes for knowing which are those breaking changes and know beforehand what would you need to change in the new major version. So this is pretty much it. Remember to follow our developer blog in the community forum to get the latest news on development. Also, remember to check our developer documentation for any doubts you have. If there's something that you think it's not on the documentation, just please ask in the community. We will be glad to help you out, and we can improve the documentation for future iterations. And this is pretty much it. Our next office hours will be on November 11th at the same time. And yeah, Harris, do you want to say something to wrap up?
Yeah, that was great. A lot of new updates and some breaking changes. So I'm glad we have it all covered. But yeah, very nicely presented. Yeah, so I think if we don't really have any more questions, I guess we will wrap it up and we'll see you again November 11th at the same time on Tuesday.
All right. Thank you, Harris.
Of course,
Thank you all for being here.